Let's once again look at this map of the Pacific Theater. I know it's difficult to read, it's very small. You can probably Google search the same map. I just want you to get an idea of Japanese territory, kind of where we're at, as we look at major battles in the Pacific Theater. Two major battles included Doolittle's raid and the Battle of Midway. Both occurred in 1942. Even though America's first priority was to destroy Hitler, the Japanese proved to be a vicious and powerful opponent. There were many battles in the Pacific against the Japanese that turned the tides of war towards the Americans. The Americans felt it was necessary to prove themselves after they had suffered frequent losses to Japan since Pearl Harbor. This determination led to the bombing raid on Tokyo, titled Doolittle's Raid. 16 B-25 bombers attacked Tokyo. Their mission was led by Colonel James Doolittle on April 18, 1942. Now, as the plan worked, most planes were crashed or were abandoned in China on their return flight. They didn't plan to actually bring these planes back. They had to start far enough away from Japan and from Tokyo that they could not be intercepted. Plans, the attack couldn't be anticipated. Now the reality is, this attack really did more for morale than actual damage to Tokyo. The Americans continued their fighting in the Pacific, and the Battle of Midway, located halfway between North America and Asia, was the turning point of the war in the Pacific. In May of 1942, American intelligence decoded a surprise attack by the Japanese Navy. The architect of Pearl Harbor's raid, Admiral Yamamoto, led the Japanese, while Admiral Nimitz led the Americans. Now notice we decoded this surprise attack. The Battle of Midway was the first time that Japan did not have naval superiority over the U.S. Yamamoto ordered a general retreat after this Japanese defeat. U.S. carriers, Yorktown, Enterprise, and Hornet were all at Midway, and the Japanese did not know the carriers were there. The United States adopted a policy of island hopping, fighting for one important island at a time until reaching the Japanese mainland. Two islands involved in this campaign were Iwo Jima in 1945 and Okinawa, also in 1945. The U.S. needed a landing base closer to Japan, so they looked to the island of Iwo Jima. On Iwo Jima, the Japanese intercepted American bombers. 6,821 Americans died while securing this island. The United States maintained control of Iwo Jima until 1968, when the U.S. flag came down and Iwo Jima was given back to the Japanese. This is one of the most famous images from World War II, which is the flag raising on Iwo Jima. This was the United States Marines. This handful of men survived the charge up the hill. Very fascinating group of men that participated in this war. And this little group holding the flag, they're symbolic of that. Ira Hayes, who was a Pima Indian living on a reservation prior to World War II, is the man whose hand has just come off the top of the flag. Very diverse group of soldiers. Okinawa was another strategically located island. It was only 350 miles from mainland Japan. It had a good harbor and would serve as an ideal place for an invasion of Japan. The Japanese resorted to suicide missions, dive bombing American ships with their planes during this attack. These missions were called kamikaze, or the divine wind. Overall, the belief was that if you were killed in battle, if you were killed bringing honor to your country, you yourself would go directly to somewhat like the Japanese form of heaven. and it would be bring honor, you would bring honor to your family. There were 2,800 Japanese men who chose to bring honor to their family by being a kamikaze pilot. Their 2,800 kamikaze attacks led to 4,900 American sailors being killed, the sinking of 34 American ships, and the damaging of another 368. The Okinawa invasion that began on Easter Sunday, 1945, resulted in the sinking of the largest Japanese battleship, Yamato. This ended any Japanese naval threat for the duration of the war. Japan, however, continued to fight on Okinawa. They refused to give up this position, and Japan lost 110,000 lives on the land, this tiny island of Okinawa. The United States only lost 12,520. After the battles of Okinawa and Iwo Jima, where the Americans captured very few Japanese prisoners of war. Instead, the Japanese were determined to fight until they were killed, never to surrender. That would bring huge dishonor to the family and to the country. The American government and the American military started to be concerned about invading into mainland Japan. This could come at a huge cost. So discussion continues as to what actions to take next.